Hey guys, Black History. We can't go out with a couple Black poets. So this is Nikki Giovanni with Poem for a Lady Whose Voice I Like. So she said, you ain't got no talent. If you didn't have a face, you wouldn't be nobody. And she said, God created heaven and earth and all that's black within them. So he said, you ain't really know hot shit. They tell me plenty sisters take care of business better than you. And she said, on the third day he made chitlins and all good things to eat and said, that's good. So he said, if the white folks hadn't been under your skirt and been giving you the big play, you'd have had to come on to Uptown like everybody else. And she replied, then he took a big black greasy rib from Adam and said, we will call this woman, and her name will be Sapphire, and she will divide into 4 parts that Simone may sing a song. And he said, you pretty full of yourself, aren't you? So she replied, show me someone not full of herself, and I'll show you a hungry person. All right, y'all, that's Miss Nikki Giovanni with a poem for a lady whose voice I like. Tell me guys what you think. I mean, just for me reading it, what I see is like this man who's kind of like berating her and like trying to take down her self-esteem for some reason. And her responses are really grounded in the fact like I'm in God's creation and that's really enough. Like I'm enough because God created me is what I'm getting for her responses. And I say that because if I just move away from his statements and only look at how she responds, she says, God created heaven and earth and all that's black within them. On the third day, he made chitlins and all good things to eat and said, that's good. Then he took a big black greasy rib from Adam and said, we will call this woman and her name will be Sapphire, and she will divide into 4 parts that Simone may sing a song. Show me someone not full of herself, and I'll show you a hungry person. So for me, like it doesn't even seem like she's really like giving him a real response. She's like, anyway, my relationship with God is bigger than whatever your opinion is of me. It's almost how I'm reading her responses. Because she starts off saying God created heaven and earth and all that's black within them. So like her response is like God created me. And then she goes on to say, like he's like, I know plenty of women that take care of business better than you. And her response is like, and on the third day he made chitlins and all good things to eat and said that's good. And so what I'm thinking from that response, and y'all can correct me, but what I get from that response is like, okay, all black women are great. Yeah, and that's good. That's kind of how I read it. I don't know. And then she comes back and says, he took a big black greasy rib from Adam and said, we will call this woman. And she spells woman as Woeman, like her woes, like her worries, her troubles, like that her life would be full of trouble and suffering, which we know from the Genesis, they eat the forbidden fruit and woman is cursed to be woesome for her life. And he says her name will be Sapphire and she will divide into 4 parts and that Simone may sing a song. I used to looking into that part. But then her final response is, show me someone not full of herself and I'll show you a hungry person. And like just snaps. Because if you aren't loving yourself and you aren't confident in yourself and how you feel about yourself can't be self-validated, you are going to find a life of strife. People, no matter how great you are, how beautiful you are, how much you give, you can't rely on people to give that back. I'm sorry to break that news. I know it hurt my feelings too, but you do have to have. It's almost like the saying that I love is like, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? you gotta fill yourself up. And when I say fill yourself up, you gotta love yourself. Like, so if you're looking in the mirror sometimes and you're like, oh, my body not how I want it to be, go to the gym and get your body how it, whatever you need to do, whatever actions you need to make to love yourself, take those actions, because there is always going to be someone like the person that's going back and forth with her that keeps trying to like knock you down to size. But it doesn't work if you're happy with yourself and you're happy with, like, almost for her, she's like, I'm happy with my relationship with God. He said I'm enough, so I'm enough. He said that's good, so I'm good. And so you have to find that level of validation in yourself, whether it be religion, whether it be taking care of I know a lot of people that take care of their outside and that make them feel good. For me, it take a little more than that, because I feel pretty all the time. I need a little more than that, right? But whatever it is that can get you to a place of like, no, I am full of myself and you can go to shit, is so important. Now let's isolate his statements. He says, you ain't got no talent. If you didn't have a face, you wouldn't be nobody. You really ain't no hot shit. They tell me plenty sister take care of business better than you. If the white folks hadn't been under your skirt and been giving you the big play, you'd have had to come to Uptown like everybody else. You pretty full of yourself, ain't you? So everything he kind of says to her is like insulting and demeaning, right? You ain't got no talent. He says like you have a pretty face, but that's it. And like white people been touching you, rubbing you, molesting you, and that's the only reason you even got the little bit of clout you have. Or else you'd just be like anybody else. You're not special. He really wants her to know she's not special. And that's unfortunate. Like, this guy, for whatever reason, that's unfortunate, because she is special. And that doesn't take away from his own specialness, but for whatever reason, he's threatened by it, and that's pathetic. But she is special. So the poem in itself just really reminds us to like love yourself. Like, it's always gonna be somebody. And so he said. And I think it's important that when people are doing that to you, that you are truly grounded in your purpose, in your journey, in your life, and you have something meaty to hold on to, because it's easy to get trapped up in like a toxic conversation with somebody where it's like you keep trying to like, redeem yourself, but for what? For who? So yeah, the poem, I think it's like unfortunately a little bit negative, and kind of promotes that little gender war thing that I hate to kind of take part in, because I love men. I think they're great, though I don't always understand them. I'm not here to bash them. I think black men and all men are really wonderful people and have so much to offer us, personally. But with that said, some people, men or women, can be really shitty, and that's why you have to be full and grounded in your own life, regardless of the opinions of others. Anyway, that is Nikki Giovanni. That is my analysis. Tell me how you read the poem. Tell me what you took away. Let me know in the comments. And happy Black History Month. We made it to like 16 videos. So tell me if you guys want me to finish up. That means I owe you about 12, which we can do that. I ain't tripping. Just let me know. Anyway, happy reading.